All right. Alex, can we please have a one-word prompt?
About
Horror-themed, ideally.
head cheese.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Here we go. Three, two.
I don't think I've ever consumed that.
No?
I don't think so.
It's not a daily driver for your meal?
Should it be? I've done like bone marrow. That's really good.
Oh, I've done that too. And pig's brain, I think I've eaten as well.
You've eaten pig's
In
brain?
like the same meal as bone marrow. It was a weird dinner. Hold on one second. Hey, welcome to the Overtalking Podcast with your hosts, Ken and CJ. Say hi, CJ.
The podcast which you're about to listen to is an account of the tragedy that befell two high school friends, in particular, Ken and his lesser co-host, CJ. It is all the more tragic in that they think they are still young. But, as they have lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished, that this show would slowly make them mad and macabre. For them, an idyllic 379 records became a nightmare. The events of those records were led to the discovery of one of the most bizarre podcasts in the annals of American history, the Illinois Overtalking Massacre. Also, hi, CJ.
Bravo.
Well done.
Dang. Hopefully you didn't steal our guest's thunder there, unless maybe.
You totally did.
Alex told me ahead of time that he had something prepared, and that totally makes sense. Still do it. I think it's going to be perfect.
I'm in your house today.
Look, we've got a new guest on the show. Let's just bring him right on because I've already been talking to him about him. But yeah, we have a new guest. His name is Vazquez. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be so fun, guys.
Thanks for being here.
I'm looking forward to it. So how I know Alex is not personally until now, but I attended a horror film festival that he put together a couple years ago. I don't remember how long ago, and I think it was two of them actually.
Yes,
but it was called the Windy City Horrorama. Can you explain like how that came about, how you were involved in that?
Yeah. Oh, sort of. I guess I can give the Cliff's notes. So me and my buddy Matt Stork, who he did a lot of community programming for a website called Horror Society. I don't know if you ever read that, Ken, or went to any of the screenings. A lot of them were held at the Bucket of Blood Books and Record Store, where Matt currently works as well. And he would put on these like really great programs. He would do marathons at his house for his friends and things like that. At the time, I was programming the After Dark section of the Chicago International Film Festival.
Wow.
I did that in 2016 and 2017. And I felt like I was watching a lot of really interesting kind of lower budget, more independent horror movies that I thought were good and worth screening, but didn't necessarily fit into the confines of the program that I had. And I wasn't really sure if there was a place for them in the city. And I talked about it a lot with Matt, and we just kind of decided to give it a shot on our own, basically, the two of us. So in 2018 and 2019 were the 2 years that we did Horrorama. It was truly just like a duct tape and staples kind of endeavor for the two of us, and a small group of our friends who really just they put in a lot of hours, pretty much for nothing, just to kind of put together a weekend of independent horror movies with a couple of repertory screenings of stuff that we thought was important to uplift. We did it for 2 years. We had a third one planned in April of 2020. We can all imagine how that went. That was going to be the final one. We were kind of we were like, this is making enough money to pay for itself, basically. But like we kind of decided the juice wasn't worth the squeeze after that point. The pandemic kind of threw it all out of whack, and we kind of, at least professionally, went on our separate ways. Matt and I are still, best buds, but that was kind of that's kind of the short version of it. But I was very charmed to hear that Ken attended and enjoyed it. I learned as much from his wife, who works at a bakery that my wife frequents. And that's kind of how we came together in this way. It's a pretty roundabout story, but kind of fun.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I have a lot of questions. So do you professionally program movies like outside of this? Like how did you get involved in that?
On and off. Yeah, I worked operations for Chicago International. I started screening for them just for free, just as something to get into the practice of doing, because I worked film festivals mostly on the theater ops side, kind of on and off.
Okay.
And I guess they liked what I was doing, and a job had opened up and they just offered it to me. That's kind of where
That's awesome.
how I almost like stumbled sideways into it. I do just a little bit of that at my current job. I work for the Chicago Film Office at the city's Department of Cultural Affairs.
Oh, wow.
We do have a movie theater in the cultural center that I put partnered programming in throughout the year.
Okay.
Most of my job is filming permits for the films and TV shows that work around the city. Chicago Fire, The Bear, The Shy, things like that. But
cool.
yeah, that's a little about me.
Ken, is that your dream job that he has? It feels like
it's pretty close to it. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like there'd be a lot of pressure to not the getting the permits portion, but programming movies. I don't know. I feel like it'd be a lot of pressure to please everyone, or I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, there sort of is. And I kind of have to think about it in terms of what our office is supposed to be doing, which is uplifting the arts in the city. So a lot of it comes from me talking with a lot of the local nonprofits and film collectives in the city to try to give them a space to come in and do some free programming. So that's where the bulk of it comes from. But I've been there for a couple of years now, and I'm trying to put together some programs that are a little more homegrown, and also kind of open up a more equitable process of applying for use of the space. Because what's really fun about it is that it's free. It's city funded, and we don't have to worry about like selling, a certain amount of tickets to keep the doors open. We are a free arts dispensary here.
That's awesome. Wow.
But I think the pressure's higher for a lot of my other colleagues who put on stuff like Taste of Chicago, Blues Fest, et cetera, et cetera. Like those are some pretty big events.
Dang. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thank you for the background. I might have more questions later as they come to me, but that's awesome. And you threw a great 2 festivals, by the way, for the Windy City Horrorama. I enjoyed my time. Did you show Idle Hands at one of them? Was that?
We did. We showed Idle Hands, and we brought in Rodman, the director of that movie, Rodman Flender. Right. He was a joy to have. He was so fun. We really loved that screening.
Yes, I was at that one, and that one specifically, I'll never forget the director being there. And I think he even showed some behind-the-scenes stuff after the movie, too.
He did. He said he had never shown those publicly before. He was really excited. They were like home movies from when he was filming that movie.
Dang.
Yeah, that was an awesome experience. So thank you for putting those on. It's a shame we didn't get to part 3, but totally understandable.
Yeah, maybe someday. We'll see. Maybe some version of it someday.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we haven't even talked about what the movie this week is for the show, but we are talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in case you couldn't tell by CJ's opening and you haven't seen the movie. The original, by the way. And yeah, this is fitting with our theme for the whole month. I didn't give this theme to Alex, but the theme is classic horror movie villains and monsters. And so Leatherface fits into this.
It sure does.
So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the Overtalking Podcast.
This is the movie that Rex Reed called the most horrifying motion picture I have ever seen. This film is positively ruthless in its attempt to drive you right out of your mind. It accomplishes everything it sets out to do with brilliance and unparalleled terror.
Franklin!
This is the horror movie to end them all.
And we're back on the Overtalking Podcast, joined by new guest, Alex Vazquez, and we're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Alex, we're going to put 30 seconds on the clock for you to describe for someone who's not yet seen the original, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what it's all about.
Ready, go.
CJ kind of stole my thunder here, but I'm gonna go right into it. I'm gonna do my best John Larroquette voice.
Do it.
The film which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths, in particular Sally Hardesty and her invalid brother Franklin. It is all the more tragic in that they were young, But had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished, to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Woo!
That's all I got.
I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
you
movie.
can't do it better than that.
No.
Yeah.
Like, what an intro, like, text scroll.
So dramatic. The voice, everything about it. Yeah.
And little would they know that guy, John Larroquette, would then be just like a staple of American television with like Night Court and everything like that. And he came back, as I understand, we'll get into it. I haven't seen a lot of the sequels or remakes, but they keep bringing him back to do that, similar narration, like the bridging intros and everything like that. It's still him. He's still down to do it, apparently.
That's awesome. You can't replace that voice, I guess. Dang.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was not familiar with who said that, but yeah, that's a really interesting little piece of trivia.
This is my first endeavor into any of this. Alex, I don't know if Ken warned you. Not a horror guy, just a big scaredy cat.
I learned that after I will say I apologize because I learned this after I pitched this film, and then I started listening to some of specifically your older October episodes. And I realized this and I was like, oh no, what have I done? But I'll also be very interested in what you make of all of this.
Yeah,
I'm so excited to see what CJ thought of this movie.
No apology necessary. I know what I'm getting into. Ken gets a little treat for this month and I'll do whatever he picks and stuff.
What a trooper.
Yeah, the narration at the start, my takeaway from the movie is like, oh yeah, there pretty much isn't a plot. They go to a house and then shit hits the fan and that's it. And then that's the whole movie and you're along for that ride.
Yeah.
That's the whole movie.
Yeah, I don't think you need a summary. It's a group of teens, they show up at a house and they start getting killed. That's about it.
It's one of the first this was really the wellspring of that, of that horror cliche almost,
Gotcha.
You could keep going back and you can find some of that, but it's more like there's a little bit like the old Dark House. You get back to the 30s and find some of that stuff, but it's but that's it's more like ghostly haunted house kind of stuff. There's a little bit less of that everybody's getting picked off and slaughtered sort of thing. This really feels like the modern template that they're still ripping off. This is its 50-year anniversary. I don't know if you were going to mention that, but that's what I realized after the fact. I'm like, oh, this is 1974. This was 50 years ago.
Yeah. By the time this came out, this would have already happened. But the beginning of October, the Music Box Theater in Chicago was going to be showing a screening of this for the 50th anniversary. And I think they were having someone in attendance who was in the movie. Or no, they have the original mask there. They had the original mask at the screening.
Oh, creepy. I wonder if what does that thing look like now? It's got to be just
pretty awful in the movie. So
yeah. That's got to be rubber though, right? Or something. It may have lasted the years.
I was watching a making of doc in preparation for this a little bit, and the makeup artist talks about trying to replicate creating a formula to replicate the what decaying skin would actually look like. So it's a combination of latex with these fiberglass, some kind of structuring element. It is quite thin and translucent. Huh. So I'm sure what happens is it probably just keeps getting more and more discolored. So I wonder if it's just a completely different color now. I wonder if it's just a dark brown. Because in the movie, it's kind of got this almost jaundiced yellow kind of thing. So I wonder if it's just a completely different color.
I wonder if they use the same kind of thing for the grandpa mask or whatever the hell they did to grandpa, but I don't know.
I would have loved to be a fly on the wall of that person coming home from work and their partner how was work today, honey? Oh, human skin? I'm trying to recreate that. They want a mask of that.
Oh my God.
So, Alex, you were starting to get a little bit into the context of this movie and where it fits into the horror landscape. And yeah, you're absolutely right. This is super early on. This is before even really slashers were a thing, right? This is before Halloween, Friday the 13th, any of that.
Yeah. It is a proto slasher, I think, or one of the first. Again, you can kind of find, it goes back to
Mhm.
Psycho a little bit. Like you can kind of see some of that stuff. There's a little bit, the Italians are doing some stuff a little bit earlier. They're more like mystery, like murder mystery movies, giallos, but still like in terms of like there's something also that feels just like so American about this movie
Oh, for
in
sure. Unfortunately.
so many ways, so many wonderful, horrible ways.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'll tip my hand a little bit. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is personally not one of my favorite horror movies, and I'm
Okay.
sure CJ is going to be along the same vein as me.
We'll
But
see.
I've always been curious. Like it's just not my cup of tea. But I know it's huge, and like it's got great ratings, and everyone in the horror community besides me seems to love it. And
Mhm.
I specifically wanted to talk about this one when you threw it out because I want to talk to someone who actually does enjoy it, and I assumed you do since you picked it. And yeah, I want to maybe understand a little better, like what's appealing about this movie, and why do you feel like it's lasted and stood the test of time across fans?
All right. I will gladly go up to the defense stand and
Please,
make my
please.
case for this movie. And I guess it would start for me with like my first experience with this movie. I was very much actually a late bloomer into being a fan of horror. I like when I was a kid, I was a big scaredy cat, and lots of stuff like even in the most like innocuous movies would like make me uncomfortable, or I would have to run out of the room or things like that when I was growing up. And then at a certain
CJ,
point,
that's still
I
CJ, right?
just
Yep.
and at a certain point I just decided like I don't know when, but I was like I need to like understand this, and I need to like almost like exposure therapy, like get this out of like I need to like understand technically how this works. I got interested in like movie makeup and costume design just reading about it, because I almost wanted to like prove to myself like no, this stuff is real, like this is how people make it, whatever. I remember one of the big things to me was the HR Giger alien design, the
Mm,
scariest thing I had ever seen when I was like 8 years old. I was like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, I don't know about the
you're good.
swearing
All
on
good.
here,
Yep,
but
we do it.
it's like, what in the fuck is that thing? Like this thing that's just like dripping and eating people and whatever. And then, from there, I just kind of kept exploring. And then at one point, I purchased a DVD of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think I might have been like 13 years old or something like that. And I remember I had to like smuggle this thing into my house because my parents were very protective of the kind of things I would watch, and they would never ever let me watch this thing because they didn't want
Hmm.
to watch it either. They're like, this is ugly, this is disgusting.
Right.
And I remember popping it in on the basement TV with my best friend, and it starts, and I think the movie is like I think the disc is broken almost the way this movie starts, with
Mm.
those like after the scroll, and then there's like a little bit of black, and then you just start to get like the like and these like weird like little,
Yeah.
it
Hmm.
feels so
That
jagged,
sound.
and yeah, all the decomposing bodies that have been dug out of the graves or whatever that you discover, later on. But I
Hmm.
remembered for a minute thinking like, is this thing like, is this what I had never seen anything like this before. And it felt immediately wrong to me. Like I was like, I dug this thing up out of the dirt or something like that. Like this isn't, and I had been pretty desensitized at that point to like horror movies and gore and all this other stuff. But
Hmm.
this was the first time in like that I could remember that I was like immediately like the vibes are off here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it felt to me, and as I continued to watch it up to again the very, very abrupt ending and the way that it ends, which I think is just among some of the most like perfect endings in movie history, period, if not horror movie history. This thing, it's like the metaphor that I came up with, that scene in Lord of the Rings where Saruman is digging up the Uruk-hai in the first Lord of the Rings movie, and the goblins are like pulling them up out of these like amniotic
Oh
sacks
yeah.
Oh
and
yeah.
Yeah.
ripping them open, and this thing just comes out of the muck screaming and wanting to kill. And then like that's like what I think this movie is. Like some like perfect movies and perfect horror movies, almost like John Carpenter's Halloween and some other ones, there's like there is an elegance to how this thing is constructed, where it feels like I'm in the hands of masters. I'm in the hands of people who are exacting a lot of control over the movie I'm watching, right? Like there's a thrill in being like kind of strung along that way. This feels like it was dug out of the dirt by madmen and just thrown out into the world in a way that feels wild and raw and unsafe. The whole thing feels unsafe while I'm watching it. Like there are still like, while I'm watching that movie, I'm like, that looks like that guy just got hit in the head with a sledgehammer and went down. Like it looks real to me. And when Leatherface is chasing Marilyn Burns and she's screaming her head off and he's swinging that thing and it looks like it's a half an inch from her neck. And I'm like, that, I can't believe nobody died making this. Like this looks real, and it looks dangerous in a way that like makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it is a perfect wild thing that can't be duplicated and maybe almost shouldn't. But I still also think it was made with a certain kind of, even though it feels very, very wild and very unkempt, there is kind of an artistry underneath it that I think kind of gives it a lot of immediacy. And we could, you know, I could talk for hours about all of the things I see under the surface of the perversion of the American family that I'm seeing in here, and the weird blend. Like it's also kind of funny in a really like weird and messed up way.
Yeah.
There's just, I don't know, I could go in like 10 different directions with this thing, but like
Okay.
I'm always in awe of it when I'm watching it. And I don't think it has an equal, is just kind of, I guess, like the nutshell version of like, and why I may not be like scared necessarily. I also think it's feeding into a personal fear of mine, which is like what is going on in like the weird dark corners of the American landscape. I am from the American Mountain West. I grew up in Colorado, and I remember when I was a teenager driving around like certain like even non-populated areas just outside my hometown. Like when you get out past a certain point and you don't have like street lights anymore, but you're seeing houses and people live out there, but they don't want to. But they live out there for a reason. And you don't want to know what that reason is, you know? And I also remember driving through certain parts of the country and thinking, if my car breaks down and I don't have cell service, like I could disappear and nobody could know what happened to me. And this movie is like, yes, that fear is real. These people are real. Not only that, it's worse than you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And for me, it just feeds into like, I'm not scared of like the ghost, the supernatural. That stuff doesn't really like I don't have a real fear of that. But that stuff feels very, even if this movie and the exact like milieu of it doesn't feel real to me, it feels like the kind of worst case scenario that you could make up in your brain when your car is broke down on the side of the road of a desert area of the United States. Like,
absolutely.
It's what a blast of like imagination and madness. Sorry, I talked a lot, but hopefully that gives you a good.
You know what? It gives me context to maybe understand why it doesn't, or it didn't hit as hard for me. I've only seen this movie like 1.5 times. I think I caught part of it at another film festival and I didn't see the whole thing. And then I, for this, actually sat down and watched the whole thing. But I think the problem for me is I watched it so late in my horror journey that I've seen so many other things that do or probably were trying to imitate what Texas Chainsaw Massacre did, that when I watch this, I am so jaded and I'm thought by all the other things running around in my head that it didn't scare me in the way that it probably did for you that first time you watched it. But the interesting thing that you threw out was the kind of like found feeling of it, like the fact that you brought this home and it was something you needed to hide and it felt wrong to watch. Like that's scary. And yeah, I totally see that in this movie. And I think I just need to view it through maybe a different lens, or maybe a more, I was going to say like childlike lens, but like, you know, like a more innocent lens to maybe get the full impact of it. But to take that premise all the way, CJ, I want to ask you what you thought of this movie.
I'm very curious.
Yeah. Like, Ken, what you were saying is kind of what I run into most of these months, is because people are talking about, like, I haven't seen any of the classics really. Like last year we did the Blair Witch Project, for example. And I know at the time that was like a huge thing, but I'd never seen it. And so seeing it for the first time last year, you're just like, oh yeah, that was fine. Like, it doesn't have as big of an impact. This one for me, like, the takeaways were, I think nowadays with movie, you are used to a good amount of like backstory and explanation and stuff like that. And there is like none of that. You have no clue why the people are the way they are. It's just like thrown out there. Oh, well, they just like killing people. You're like, oh, okay, that's it. All right.
Well, it's their food.
Yeah,
They butcher and eat. They have a slaughterhouse.
Yeah. And he does make a reference to like not being able to afford stuff. So
my family's always been in meat.
Yeah. Oh, creepy just hearing that again.
See? And I love that there's no explanation for this beyond we kill and eat you. It's what we've done our whole lives. We do it the old way. We do it with the sledgehammer. We butcher with the chainsaw. And that's kind of why I'm also interested, Ken, as a horror guy and as a franchise guy, like, considering that this is maybe my favorite horror movie of all time, and that I'm very curious and interested in horror franchises, I've never been interested in this as a franchise. And I don't know if you probably feel the same way because you've never had much of a strong connection to it, but I'm interested in like the Halloweens and the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the Friday the 13th to some extent.
Yeah.
Even the Child's Plays. That's kind of secretly one of my favorite franchises is Child's Play.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a conversation for another time. But this one, I was like, I almost have like no curiosity to see any of the like 8 attempts they've made to try to recapture this, because I'm like, you just can't.
No. We'll get into that a little bit more in the trivia section, but like, there's a bunch of sequels and remakes.
Yeah.
And it's all over the place in terms of when it came out, but also like the quality. I from what I understand, I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 of these other ones, oddly before the original. But like, it's all over the place. So 100% agreed. I mean, my favorite horror movie franchise is Friday the 13th. I just went to a marathon of that at the Music Box recently as well, and that was amazing. But like, is there much continuity between the sequels even? I don't think there is.
Not
or maybe
really.
For the first 2 or 3, but I don't know.
And even that, I've seen the second and the third one beyond the original. I haven't seen any of the remakes or anything like that. And the second one was directed by Tobe Hooper as well, who directed the first one. And he came to it like 10 years later, specifically with the idea of like, I'm not going to duplicate that, so I'm going to find a different approach, which is more of like a Carnival Barker. It leans more into like the Carnival Barker comedy aspect of it, where it's more satirical and more just like kind of like it's gorier. You're seeing heads cut in half. Like the production design is more extravagant. They got Dennis Hopper in there hamming it up. Like it's pretty ridiculous. And I like that one for what it is, and appreciating his understanding that it's like, this is technically the same family, kind of.
Yeah.
There are a couple of the actors that they port over from the first one, and they're like, the jobs that they all hold in the family are very similar, but the approach is different, and what they're doing is different. That they now have like a successful barbecue stand that people flock from all over Texas because it's the best barbecue in Texas, and we all know what they're eating. And
that's a good idea.
See, that sounds good. I've heard a lot about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre too, and it being basically a comedy, even though it was directed by the same Tobe Hooper. But I've never sought it out because, again, this isn't my franchise. But that sounds good, and I think CJ would probably enjoy that a little more.
You should watch it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's by Tobe Hooper's account, it was compromised. It was a Canon Films production. I don't know, Ken, if you're familiar with the Canon.
No.
They did a lot of like they made a few movies with Hooper. They also did Life Force and Invaders from Mars. If you ever saw those, those are kind of like those were the ones that they did with him. They also did a lot of Stallone like kind of like trashy action movies like Cobra, Stallone's Cobra. and a lot of Chuck Norris movies, Missing in Action, things like that. They were like a big like repository of 80s kind of cut rate B movies.
Okay.
And but they also kind of like ruled with an iron fist. And Tobe Hooper said like, oh, they kind of took this away from me. He's like, I still kind of like it, but it's not exactly the thing I set out to do. But I think it's still very much worth watching. But I'm curious. You said all that, CJ, but I'll ask straight up. Did you like this movie?
Yeah, you didn't really say, did you?
No, I don't think it's for me. I
knew it.
A couple parts I want to talk about specifically, because you brought up humor. There was one part where I laughed out loud, which is Sally, the main scream queen, makes it out of the house and runs back to the gas station that they stopped at earlier. Sort of gets the attention of the guy working there. She's freaking out. He's like, okay, I'll get the car. Like, hold on. And then she realizes, oh no, he comes back with rope, and she's like, oh crap. Grabs a knife, and then the guy just starts smacking her with a broom over and over to like fight her back. That really got me. That was just like, what interesting choice of a weapon to fight off. Just like smacking her in the face with a broom. And then
it worked.
It did work.
Yeah, sure did.
Can't argue with results, I guess. And then the ending, where it basically credits roll after what I will call like a chainsaw interpretive dance while the sun is coming up.
Yes.
He's supposed to be frustrated, apparently.
It's one of those things where at the time, I think I literally out loud to myself went, what? Because I was not expecting that at all. Like, I guess it makes sense in that the main character like got away, but then for it to like still have that shot and then like goes to credits, that took me by surprise, I guess.
It did for me too. Again, I thought the disc was broken. I thought it skipped or something the first time I watched it. But now I just love it. I think it's what a note to end on. It's like it's weirdly beautiful too, the time of day that they get it, and that he's backlit by the sun, and it's like it's almost like he's doing a dance.
Yeah.
And it sums up to me, I think, what's so compelling to go to your theme, Ken, of like this of what makes Leatherface compelling as a monster to me. And watching it this newest time, it became like very apparent to me that the movie weirdly gives him moments alone to kind of be in reflection in very strange ways, and to weirdly kind of let you into his headspace in a way that will like never quite understand what this guy is about and why he's doing what he's doing. But you at least realize, oh, he experiences like sadness and disappointment and frustration, and he doesn't know how to express himself. He's nonverbal. He just kind of grunts and makes these weird squealing noises for the whole movie. But I also think back to this other moment about halfway through the movie where he, after like subduing a couple of people who come into the house, he gets frustrated. He like opens up the window. You almost see him get nervous. He's like, where are these people coming from?
Right.
And he sits in the living room and puts his head in his hands. He's like, what am I going to do? And like, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It just kind of it sent a chill up my spine this time. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out. That moment specifically, I was like, oh, he's maybe not just a monster, but like this is his home, and people just keep, for some fucking reason, walking through the front door. I at that moment I was thinking, has he done anything really wrong yet? Actually, like all he's doing is like protecting his house so far. I mean, other than chopping people up in little bits, but
it's a perversion of these American family values that they keep kind of putting forth, and they give you these little moments, these little like sneaky bits into like these other people's headspace, and that's almost what makes it worse and more wrong to me. Like, again, that wrong feeling that like turns in my gut when I'm watching it. I'm like, oh yeah, like that's a little, I don't know, they made me for like a fraction of a second feel bad for this guy.
That when the dad like drives back and is just like beating the shit out of Leatherface, you're like, all right, Jesus, like take it easy. Like, yeah, that was where I felt like a little bad for him, again, reminding myself that he just like slaughtered a few people. But yeah, you're just like, well, okay, he's got a parent that's abusive. That can't be fun.
Yeah. And also that moment where Marilyn Burns, going back to that ending, when Marilyn Burns is driving away and she's like laughing,
Yeah.
like she's in a complete state of
Yes.
shock, where it's
Yeah.
like, you almost, I don't know, like sometimes, and what's weird is like a lot of these people, you don't see them again in other movies. Like a lot of these guys didn't go on to have like very long or illustrious careers. They were all just like some people they found locally. And they're so, for me at least, they are so good in this movie, and everything is firing so hard that like, but like that's what adds to this thing feeling like, you know, like a discovered, like a piece of found art or something like that, where like you see that and that face is associated with that movie. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis is an Oscar winner, and she has this like other like wonderful career, and she's a great actress, and I associate her with so many other things now beyond just being Laurie Strode. But like, but Marilyn Burns will always be in the back of that truck, covered in blood, crying so hard she's laughing.
Yeah.
Like that, and that is what that movie will always be to me. And that's like, I don't know, that just like kind of crystallizes it in my brain.
That ending, my thoughts on the movie overall aside, that ending is really beautiful. Like you mentioned.
And there's no
like,
music.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Just
like
screaming.
Towards the end of it, and all you're hearing at the end is him just throwing that thing around, throwing a little tantrum.
Yeah.
And then that's the note we end on.
I also, going back to what you said, like how you were surprised that no one got hurt filming this movie. Because like whatever he's holding is definitely on. Like there's smoke coming out of it. Like I hope that it actually isn't, you know, the normal chain part and is maybe
what they
dull
do,
or something,
I think, is they remove the blades.
Yeah.
But there's still a thing running through it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure people got hurt. I can almost guarantee you.
Anytime that guy Leatherface is like running through the woods, I'm like, what happens if that guy trips? Even if it is just like rubber or something, like that still seems like that would hurt.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised no one died. Yes. I'm sure people got hurt.
Yeah, specifically, I know random bits of trivia just from getting the trivia portion together that didn't make it into it, but the main actress, when she was running through like the brambles or whatever those stick things were, she got cut up like a lot, and a lot of the blood on like her clothing is like her own real blood because she for sure got injured during that. Yeah. And when they were trying to do the scene where like they cut her finger and then they stuck it in Grandpa's mouth, they couldn't get the blood pump to work or something like that, and so they ended up actually cutting her finger and using her real blood for, I think, some of that scene. I don't know all the details, but
hate that
something like that happened. It's really
yucky. Weird. My wife came downstairs while that was playing on the TV. Where they're just like they're holding her and like putting her finger in the grandpa's mouth. And she just looks, and my wife Molly is not into she's not into horror movies whatsoever. CJ, she's like you, and she just looks, she's like, cool, and just like upstairs, she's like, nope.
All right, well,
that dinner scene's another all timer for me. And it's the moment the Gitter grandpa moment where they're holding her in front of the bucket, and again they're saying that's like, we're doing this the old way is the best way. Yeah. It's like Grandpa with the sledgehammer is like, he was the best. He was the best at this. And he's just like completely decrepit and barely alive. And he just, they're just holding her there, and he keeps kind of trying to swing the hammer, and he drops it, and he whatever. And she just can't. And it's like, it's not even, she can't even get the benefit of a swift death. It just has to keep, you know, like this hammer just keeps lightly swinging past her head while they're holding her there, and everybody's screaming, and it just, I don't know.
I would love to know how they decided on like the length of that scene, because I feel like short enough wouldn't be unsettling enough, and then it went on for a while. I was like, oh my God, they're still going. This is like, but it does, I think, just build and build and build. And you're like, is this where she finally dies? Is she going to die? And
to your point, weirdly, like in a really fucked up way, funny. Like, it's funny to watch. It's a weird little like bizarre tableau to be watching where they keep insisting, he's the best slaughterer in Texas, whatever.
Yeah.
Like this, he knows how to do this, and it's just nope.
He can't even hold the hammer.
Yeah. And also a weird callback to the beginning of the movie where they pick up the hitchhiker in the van and they talk about the different ways in which cows get slaughtered. They talk about the air gun,
Yeah.
that I think was made very famous in No Country for Old Men,
Yeah.
as Anton Chigurh's weapon of choice, and that the hitchhiker goes like, nah, the sledgehammer was the best way. Like that's the good way to do it. And then there you go. An hour later, it comes back where they're like cheering Grandpa on as he's like trying to, there's that's one of those things that's like weirdly in there, like that I think is always kind of in like the American psyche and in the rural American psyche as well, of like the old ways versus the new ways. Why can't we have it like the good old days? Like that was better. Like, why can't we preserve that? Why can't we go back to that? I'm towing a certain line here, but
I'm sure there's a lot of analysis that has gone into this movie.
I'll let your listeners fill in the rest of the blanks there, and how like perverse and messed up that looks in practice.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta make a hard transition here because it's time for trivia.
Hey, did you know that?
That's right. For new listeners, it's the trivia portion of our show where we pit our guests and CJ head-to-head to see who knows the most about what we watched, although I'm pretty sure we already know who that is. Alex, CJ, are you two ready?
Ready to lose.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll do my best.
I'm going to just say for all of these, CJ should answer first just to like not spill the beans on what the right answer is, because Alex, I'm sure will know all of these. Or maybe we'll see. That's a lot of pressure.
See.
We'll back that off. All right. First question. How many films are in this franchise, including this film and any remakes?
Oof. I know there's
no frame of reference.
I want to say at least like 2 remakes, because even just like Googling this, you get so many, like trying to make sure I was watching the actual one. 7?
Okay. Alex?
I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's 9.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's 9. Good job.
Oh, wow.
That's so many.
Let me see if is it okay? Can I see if I can rattle them all off?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so there's the original. There's Texas Chainsaw 2. There's Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3.
Very good.
And then there's the 4th one, which is Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Or at least that's one of the titles it went by. That was the one with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, famously. Right. And then there was none until the remake, the Platinum Dunes remake.
Yep.
And then that had a prequel, right? The beginning.
That's right. Dang, you're doing amazing.
Then Texas Chainsaw 3D was the next one.
Yeah, had to get a 3D one in there.
That was the 3D craze. And then there was, I have 2 more. And then there was the one that was just called Leatherface, that was made by these like French directors and like sat on a shelf for like 5 years. And then there was the Netflix one that was like released a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, dang. Amazing. Good job. Bravo.
Dang.
Wow. For this not even being like you said, like your franchise or like one of your favorite franchises overall. Like, damn, that was impressive.
Oh, I'm just sick in the head. I know all of these things because I'm sick. I couldn't tell you what I had for breakfast a week ago. But I can tell you
Welcome
all
to
that.
The show, baby.
That's what takes up all the space in your head. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next question. How many people are killed by a chainsaw in this movie?
Ooh.
Oh, wow. I think it's just the 1. That's what I'm going to go with. 1.
Okay. Alex?
I think on screen, I think it might just be only 1. I think you're right, CJ.
Yep, just the 1. Just the wheelchair guy.
Because Franklin definitely gets killed with the chainsaw. Oh, we didn't talk about Franklin. Oh my God, one of the great horror movie victims in history. Franklin. Her Sally's, as they say, invalid brother, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What great what great disabled person representation, actually. Like legitimately, because he is a member of the group and he is, but there is like weirdly like no sympathy for him. Like he is really just another member of the group and he's kind of whiny and he's kind of annoying. And he has kind of weirdly the best personality as a result. You remember him so much. But I think it's just Franklin, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. He's the only one. I mean, we see one of the other guys get like cut up. Like,
but he's already dead.
But he's already dead. Yeah. He was hit in the head with a hammer. So, yeah.
The only one I couldn't remember was the one that he hangs up on the meat hook at the same time as he's carving up the other person. But you never see her.
Yeah,
you don't see her death. She's just in the meat freezer later. But she's still alive at that point. She could have survived.
The only confirmed one is Franklin. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, I'm on the board.
Cool. Yes, you did.
Good work, CJ.
Proud of you. Okay. I'm not sure on this question, and Alex, feel free to call out if this doesn't actually make sense. But how many different masks did Leatherface wear in this movie?
Oh.
Because I'll be honest, I didn't notice any difference in masks, but this was in IMDb trivia, so
at the dinner, maybe what it's referencing, at the dinner scene, he puts makeup on the mask, but I assumed that was still the same one, and he had just literally like taken lipstick or whatever and like put it over. So my answer would still be just the one.
Okay.
I think they are two distinct masks.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's two that I can say for sure. I'm not sure if he ever changes the mask beyond that, but it is, I believe, because it's with like a wig and everything like that. Like he is truly dressed up like a family matriarch, like serving dinner.
Gotcha.
Again, you could write a whole dissertation on that.
Wow, I didn't even notice that, honestly, but that's really interesting. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just saw him wearing random crap on his head. That's all my brain processed for some reason. I don't know. IMDb trivia says there's three: the killing mask, the old lady mask, and the pretty woman mask. I don't know.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if there are three distinct masks. That's just what I couldn't remember. I know that the dinner mask is distinct.
Yeah.
So I can't say for sure about the third one, but I trust him.
Okay. All right. Well,
IMDb never been wrong,
points.
right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
They got a 100% track record.
Exactly. Okay, this is going to be really interesting because I don't think this is actually said in this movie, but what is the name of the Leatherface family? And this is multiple choice just to give a shot to CJ.
Thank you.
No, I don't know this either. So.
Oh, great. Perfect. Is it A, the Thompson family, B, the Hewitt family, C, the Sawyer family, or D, the Hudson family?
I'll just perfectly average, normal sounding. Actually, I'm going to go Hudson.
Okay.
I believe, now that you've said them, I wouldn't have been able to pull it, but I believe it's Sawyer.
That's correct. Yeah. It's the Sawyer family. I didn't know that. I don't know.
They don't say it in the movie.
No.
Again,
not in this one.
To CJ's point, not important.
No, not important.
I think it becomes a thing in the second one where they're a family that has like a business and they're a little bit like they're more prominent and distinct characters.
Got it.
That's but I believe it's there you go, Sawyer.
Perfect. All right, next question. Entertainment Weekly released a top 50 cult films of all time list. I don't know when, but they did at some point. Where did this rank on that list?
See, this is where, like, personally, it would be lower. Probably like, I'll say like 37.
Okay. Alex, any guess?
I have a feeling, I don't think, I have a vague memory of maybe having read this list at some point. I had an Entertainment Weekly subscription when I was a teenager. It's got to be, I have a feeling it's in the top 10. I'm going to guess 8.
Number 6, but you definitely get the point. I mean, that was incredible.
Wow. No, I was truly, but I was like, it feels like there is like a, like fan conventions are basically built around the people who worked on this movie. Like if you think about it, there's just like always somebody there. Like that was what Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface, just did this thing for the rest of his life, basically. Like that was what paid his bills. So
makes sense. All right. Next question. What infamous serial killer inspired Leatherface? Alex for sure knows this, but I'll do a multiple choice for CJ. Was it A, Dennis Rader, C, Ed Gein, B, Ed Gein, C, Joseph James D'Angelo, or D, David Berkowitz? They're all real serial killers.
The second one sounds the most familiar in my mind, so I'm going to say Ed Gein.
Okay, Alex?
You're correct, CJ. It's Ed Gein.
That's correct.
Funny enough, was the inspiration for the Psycho serial killer as well.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, because he had mommy issues. He had his. I think he held on to his mom's corpse.
That's right. Huh. Cool. All right. How are we doing on points, Siege?
Alex is up 5-2.
Okay. This is the last question. What is the Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter score for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in percentage? Closest without going over. For those who don't know, this is the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Alex, since you're in the lead, you'll go first to give CJ an edge on getting maybe one more point, but I don't think it matters.
Got it. It's got to be in the 90s. I feel like this thing is, pretty unimpeachable, I think, in terms of that kind of reception. I'm going to guess 93.
Okay. CJ?
Now, really, do I think it is higher or too high?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good guess right in the middle there. I'll say that's too high, so I will go $1, Bob.
CJ gets the point.
Yes.
Just a little too high, though. 89%.
Oh, wow. It didn't quite make 90.
Not quite.
Good work, man. Swipe that from me.
But Alex is our winner by far. Congratulations.
By far? It's 5-3? Come on. I think that was an excellent showing, CJ.
I'm impressed I got a point.
You did much better than I thought you would. Yeah, absolutely. Just for fun, what do you think the letterbox score is? This is out of 5 to 1 decimal point, and this is just everyday Joe Schmoes rating it from their armchairs.
I don't remember the score, but when I went to check it in a letterbox, I do remember friends I follow on there, and like all of them were giving it like 4 or 5 stars. So I think this is probably one of the few ones that is over a 4 on Letterboxd. I'm gonna guess like a 4.2.
Okay.
That was what I was gonna guess as well. So just for the sake of variety, I'm gonna say 4.1.
Okay.
You're a little closer, 3.8.
Still didn't break 4. Because
average.
Everybody I follow on Letterboxd is like 5 stars.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. No, and if you look at the breakdown, it is significantly skewed to the right. Meaning that most people really, really enjoy it. But yeah, it's just the way that things average out on Letterboxd. It just, for some reason, these numbers never seem to break a 3. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Very strange. But yeah, I think that takes us to our ratings.
You've heard us debating. We know you've been waiting. So now it's time to hear our ratings.
That's a great song.
Thank you.
Alex, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for you?
This is a no-notes 10 out of 10 masterpiece for me. I think that was quite apparent the way I was talking about it. Is that what you do when somebody says that?
When someone says 10 out of 10, yeah.
I don't think I've heard an episode where somebody says 10 out of 10. That's funny. I love that. That's why I pitched it. That's why I again, like, if somebody put a gun to my head and said best horror movie of all time, this is what I have said and would say. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. And again, I just like, I wouldn't know what to do differently with this. Like, this just feels like a thing that emerged fully formed. And I don't revisit it very often. Like, I don't consider it to be a super rewatchable movie, but I think for what it is, there's just, I think it kind of doesn't have an equal, but that's just me.
I think you're in the majority there for sure. Maybe not on this podcast, but in life for sure. CJ,
well, I appreciate you giving me the ground to stump for it as much as I rambled on and did. So thank you.
Let me get to my rating. I'll tell you. I think you convinced me at least a bit on this movie, or brought me around on it. But CJ, what would you rate this movie for you?
Yeah, for me, I think, honestly, I was going to say the same. Like, talking about it maybe has given it another, like, point or two in my book. I think having you describe it and talk about it more, I can see it in a different light a bit.
But you got to do you, man. Like,
yeah, it's for you.
Like, be real.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get mad. It's all good.
I'm not the audience for this film. I will not be rewatching this. It is just, it was unexpected, but maybe not necessarily in a bad way. But I think I'll probably give it like a 6.
Okay.
But I will give it credit saying that it is different. Like I agree with again, I don't know the franchises or the horror genre in general, but like it did feel unique. Even the stuff I have been watching for this show, you can tell it's like, this was maybe the original template for some of that, and and I did love that you were just kind of like, there's maybe 10 minutes of like setup, and then it's like, oh, and somebody's dead. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is very different from the other horror movies that we watched previously. And watching it, I kept thinking about you, CJ, watching this and being like, this is probably something unlike anything he's seen before, at least on this show.
Yeah. Just thinking about me crying, having nightmares at the end of the night.
Did you watch it today, or have you slept since you watched it?
I have slept since I watched it. I watched it the other day. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad you were able to sleep.
So far, so good.
For me, look, I already mentioned, like, this, for just whatever reason, just isn't for me. I don't know why. Like, I am a big horror guy. It just, this one, for whatever reason, just doesn't hit for me. But yeah, like CJ said, like, talking about it with you today, Alex, I think you've pointed out a lot of the good qualities of this movie, actually. And thinking back on it, it's really tinged the way that I viewed it. Because I know when I was done viewing it, other than actually enjoying the ending, I was thinking, like, I don't know, this isn't for me. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got to watch it again, not right away, but at some point, view it in a different light. I think because it's like, it's just something you can turn on from streaming now, right? Like, it's not so as special available as it used to be. Right. Yeah. And it's so hyped up too, because it's one of the classics. Like, everyone knows Leatherface. And it was hyped up for me before I even watched it the first time too. So it probably just didn't, all of that just kind of took some of it from me probably. But for me, I'll give it I wasn't even going to give it a 6, CJ. I was going to give it like a 5.5 for me. Like, I don't know. It just, for whatever reason, it's just not for me. But my Letterboxd rating is not going to drag this down at all. Like, this is definitely one of the classics and probably one of the best horror movies of all time. It just, for whatever reason, personally, I don't know. I can't do it. But
you got to do you, man. It's all good. Exactly. Again, it's all good. Numbers. What are these things anyway?
I know.
You know, they're movies. They're pieces of art. You got to reflect on them with what you bring to them. It's all
And I feel like this is unfortunately a reoccurring theme on this show, that the first time we have a guest on, they bring on something they love, and for whatever reason, CJ and I don't love it.
That's okay.
And then I feel awful because I'm like, oh, this is the first time they're on our show, and like they love it. And I don't know.
No, it's a discussion. It's that makes for a more interesting discussion. Absolutely.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
I appreciated the opportunity to come in here and talk about it. I realized I'd never really spoken about it like this before. It's a very like internal movie for me, and it was fun to talk about it with people and kind of explore why, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you definitely had some very well formed thoughts on it, so I really appreciate your take, and it helped me understand this movie a bit more too. So thank you very much, Alex.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm almost. Well, I'm interested in both of your answers to this, but maybe especially CJ's, and you'll see why. What is your favorite horror movie of all time? Like, what if like gun to your head? Like, what is the one you're coming back to? Where like this is everything I want out of the genre.
What's funny is last week the guest asked us the exact same question.
Oh, shoot.
So the answer for both of us, oddly enough, is The Thing.
The Thing is really good.
I mean, the Carpenter's a master. When you're in his hands and he's like going off, like nothing's better.
Yeah,
we're Carpenter boys, I think, on this podcast.
No, that's a desert island horror movie for me for sure. It's just the Botine makeup is just absolutely out of control.
Oh yeah,
like again, like talk about a thing I've never seen anything like before or since.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
incredible artistry.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that at least for me, like that's on a whole nother level from 99% of everything I've ever seen. So love it.
Oh, you got to have me come back to talk about Green Room, man.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Because
CJ, have you seen Green Room?
No.
It's about a punk band.
Yeah, I
You're
know.
a punk
I do
music
know.
guy? I
Yeah.
see your mohawk.
Yeah.
Oh God, dude, you're gonna love it. Or God, at least I hope you will. And he just dropped a new movie on Netflix, Rebel Ridge. Maybe one of the best movies I've seen this year. Netflix just dropped it like a wet fart last week on their streaming service. Like this
I
is
didn't
nothing.
hear about it.
Yeah.
Exactly, but it's incredible. So I don't know. Maybe we could, if I haven't completely shit the bed, maybe you have me back and we talk about one of those. Because
You're a very well spoken guest. You will definitely be back on if you're willing to come back on.
Yeah.
Always, anytime.
Great.
My door's always open because I can draw a straight line from Jeremy Saulnier to John Carpenter. That's my big if you like that'll be my TED talk that I bring to that one.
Oh, I'm excited.
All right.
Perfect. Well, yeah. Thank you again for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before we let you go and hear your plugs, I just want to share with the audience what's coming up next week for classic horror movie villain and monster month. That doesn't really roll off the tongue quite like Monster Month last year did, but anyway. Yeah, next week we're gonna have Carissa back on and we're gonna talk about Saw. So Jigsaw is the villain this time.
I have seen that.
Have you? I wasn't sure if you had or not. Okay.
I've seen a few of those. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Surprisingly enough.
All right. Well, we'll be talking about that next week, so stay tuned. And thank you again, Alex. Do you have anything you want to plug at the end here, or any words of wisdom?
It's been such a pleasure, guys. This has been so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, not really. I don't know. Maybe if your listeners are interested, check out and they live in Chicago. Check out the Chicago DCASE events calendar. We have stuff that goes on all year round. A lot of my I think my colleagues in the music and performing arts divisions, I think, put together some really cool stuff all the time. We won't have a lot going on in October. We have a pretty busy September. That's when we're recording this now. But I try to keep October pretty clear because everybody else just does such wonderful programming in Chicago for horror movies. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But if your listeners are interested, I'm really only on Letterboxd these days, and even then sporadically. But they could follow me at the Vaz, THEVAZ. That's where I log whatever the heck it is I'm watching, and I love seeing what other people are watching. So throw me a follow.
Perfect. Nice. I'll follow you after this. I love finding people on Letterboxd. Awesome. Well, thank you again, CJ. What do we have?
You can follow us on all of the things at Overtalking Pod. Email the show at overtalkingpod@gmail.com. You can call or text us at USACat1591 or go to our website, overtalkingpod.party.
And Alex, I know you said you listened to old episodes, so hopefully this isn't super weird, or maybe you turned it off by this point, but we'll see. Oh no, they're here. Oh man, they're swinging in with chainsaws, dancing around with them. It's the Overtalking Lords guides. They're here to remind me, to remind you, if you like to still, please go on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and rate and review where applicable. Reviews are what help people find this podcast. Also, we spend no money in advertisements. If you like to still, please tell a friend and spread the word. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And they turned off the chainsaws and are safely putting them away. That's very nice.
Safety first.
And they didn't have the blades on anyway.
Yeah, there's rubberized. They're fake.
They're very safe. Yeah. And as we always say at the end of every single episode, you got anything, Steve?
You want me to read the entire thing?
Start it. We'll fade out.
The show would slowly make them mad and macabre.
Bye.
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 Howdy, y'all. This episode of the Overtalking Podcast was produced by Ken and CJ, edited by CJ. This week's guest was Alex Vazquez. Music by Justin Peters. Logo by Nate Richards. Check out Nate's work on Instagram at Nate Richards Designs.